This happened in the summer of 2022 when I went on a blind date in downtown Chicago. I had met him through a mutual friend, and after a few days of texting, he seemed like a great guy. Charming, funny, a little mysterious, but in an interesting way. We planned to meet at a trendy little bar just outside the Loop, a place with dim lighting, soft jazz playing in the background, and just the right amount of noise to make everything feel comfortable. I arrived first and took a seat at a booth near the back, where it was quieter. I sent him a quick message to let him know I was there, and he responded immediately, saying he was just parking and would be inside in a few minutes. That put me at ease. I hated waiting alone, but it also gave me a chance to look around and take in my surroundings. That's when I noticed him. There was a man sitting alone at the bar. He wasn't drinking, wasn't looking at a menu, just sitting completely still. His posture was rigid, his head slightly tilted as if he was listening to something I couldn't hear. The bartender passed by him a couple of times, but he didn't order anything. He never even moved. I tried not to stare, but something about him unsettled me. There was a stiffness in the way he sat, an unnatural stillness that made me feel like he wasn't just another customer. My phone buzzed again. Another message from my date. He told me he was walking in now. I glanced at the entrance, expecting to see someone come through, but the door never opened. I frowned and checked my phone again. That's when, out of the corner of my eye, I saw movement at the bar. The man turned his head slightly, not all the way, just enough for me to see part of his face. His skin was too pale, his features sharp. His lips curled slightly, almost like a smirk. But what made my stomach twist was that he wasn't looking anywhere else in the bar. He was looking directly at me. I forced myself to break eye contact and stare at my phone. Another text popped up, this time asking where I was sitting. I quickly replied, letting my date know I was in the back booth near the wall. I hit send and waited. No one walked in. The door never opened. That uneasy feeling crept back into my chest. My fingers hovered over my phone's keyboard as I typed out another message. "Are you inside?" I waited. Still no response. Slowly, I turned my head toward the bar again. The man was gone. The stool where he had been sitting was empty, still spinning slightly as if someone had just gotten up. My pulse spiked. Maybe he had left. Maybe I was overthinking it. But just as I was trying to convince myself of that, my phone vibrated again. "I see you." Every muscle in my body locked up. My stomach dropped. I glanced around the bar, scanning faces, trying to spot someone staring at me. But nothing. Everyone was caught up in their own conversations. No one seemed out of place. I stood up, grabbed my bag, and made my way toward the exit as casually as I could. My heart was hammering. The bar suddenly felt smaller, the walls pressing in. I pushed the door open and stepped outside, hoping the fresh air would calm my nerves. Then, my phone vibrated one last time. "Why are you leaving? I never got to introduce myself." My head snapped up. I turned in every direction, scanning the sidewalks, the parked cars, the people walking past. No one looked suspicious. No one was looking at me, but I could feel it. I never used that dating app again. I blocked the number, deleted my profile, even changed my usual routine for weeks just to shake the paranoia. But sometimes late at night, when I'm out with friends, I catch myself scanning the bar, checking the entrance, watching for a man sitting alone at the counter, because I know he's still out there, and he still knows what I look like. This happened in the winter of 2021 when I went on a date with a guy I had met through a dating app. His name was David, and he seemed nice, charming, polite, and a little old-fashioned in the way he spoke. After texting for a few days, he invited me over to his place for dinner. He lived outside of town, in a cabin in the woods, which he claimed was peaceful and perfect for stargazing. Normally, I wouldn't agree to meet someone at their house on a first date, but he reassured me that he wasn't some creep, and even offered to video call beforehand. Something about his confidence made me trust him. So, I agreed. The drive was long, winding through dark back roads that seemed to stretch on forever. My GPS struggled with signal, and for the last few miles I had to rely on following his directions. The trees grew denser the further I went, their bare branches clawing at the sky. The deeper I drove, the more uneasy I felt. The houses became fewer, and soon there were none at all. Just the road, my headlights cutting through the dark, and the towering trees on either side. When I finally arrived, his house looked normal enough. A cozy, one-story cabin with a warm glow coming from the windows. He was already waiting outside, waving as I pulled into the gravel driveway. He looked just like his pictures, which gave me some relief. He greeted me with an easy smile, told me I'd made it just in time because the roads could be dangerous at night. Inside, the place was surprisingly nice. Rustic but well kept, with a crackling fireplace and a table already set for two. The smell of roasted chicken filled the air, and for a moment, I let my guard down. He poured me a glass of wine, and we talked for a while. The conversation flowed naturally, and I started to feel silly for being so nervous. Then, as I reached for my drink, I noticed something. The front door had 3 different locks on it. 1 deadbolt, a chain, and a heavy sliding bar. That in itself wasn't strange, but when I glanced at the windows, I saw the same thing. Locks. Not just the usual ones that come with a house, but additional latches, thick ones, drilled into the wood. Every single window had them. I tried to ignore it, but a small voice in the back of my mind whispered that something was wrong. I took another sip of wine and asked him, casually, why he had so many locks. He chuckled and said that living in the woods, you never knew who or what might show up. It was meant as a joke, but something in his eyes didn't match the lighthearted tone of his voice. I forced a smile, trying to shake the creeping unease. But then, there was a noise. A low, distant knock. It came from outside. David froze. His entire demeanor changed in an instant. His body went rigid, his eyes darkened, and for a second I swore I saw real fear cross his face. I laughed nervously and asked if he was expecting someone. He shook his head slowly, eyes locked on the door. The knock came again. This time, it was closer. My stomach tightened. I couldn't see the front porch from where I was sitting, but I suddenly felt exposed, like something was just beyond my view. Watching. David stood up slowly and moved to the door, pressing his ear against it. He held up a hand, signaling me to be silent. The room felt suffocatingly still. Then, without warning, the back door rattled. Something was trying to get in. I shot out of my seat, my pulse hammering. David rushed toward the back of the cabin, checking the locks, his breathing uneven. I asked him what was going on, but he didn't answer. His face was pale, his hands trembling as he gripped the door handle, keeping it steady as whatever was outside pushed against it. The front door knocked again. This time, it was louder, more insistent. I grabbed my phone, but there was no signal. My breath came in sharp, shallow gasps. David whispered that I needed to stay quiet. I asked him what was outside, my voice barely above a whisper. He finally looked at me, and what he said made my blood turn to ice. "It followed you here." My body went cold. I didn't understand what he meant. He grabbed my wrist and pulled me toward the center of the cabin, away from the doors and windows. He told me not to move, not to speak, not to react, no matter what I heard. The knocking stopped. Silence stretched between us. thick and heavy. The only sound was the crackling of the fire. I held my breath, waiting, listening. Then, from outside, something scratched against the wood. Slow, deliberate, dragging along the cabin walls. Then, a voice. Not a normal voice. Not human. It was distorted, warbled, almost like a recording being played too slowly. It called my name. I nearly screamed, but David's grip tightened on my arm. His eyes were pleading, silently begging me not to react. I clenched my jaw, forcing myself to stay still. The voice called again, mimicking my own name, stretching it out like it was tasting the sound. Then, everything went silent. David didn't move. I didn't move. After what felt like an eternity, he exhaled slowly, his shoulders relaxing just slightly. He whispered that it was gone. I didn't ask questions. I just grabbed my things and ran to my car. David didn't try to stop me. I don't remember driving home. My hands shook so badly that I had to pull over once I reached the main road. My phone buzzed. A single message from David. You should have never come here. I never spoke to him again. I deleted my dating profile, blocked his number, and convinced myself that it was just some elaborate prank. But sometimes, late at night, when I'm alone, I hear it. A soft knock, and my name being whispered from just outside my window. This happened in the fall of 2023 when I agreed to go on a date with a guy named Eric. We had matched on a dating app a couple of weeks earlier, and after texting back and forth, I finally said yes to meeting up. He seemed normal, polite, well-spoken, nothing that raised any red flags. He suggested dinner at a quiet little restaurant just outside of Nashville, Tennessee, saying it was one of his favorite places and that he'd love to take me there. I agreed, excited but a little nervous, as I always was before meeting someone new. I arrived first and got a table near the window. The restaurant had a cozy feel, warm lighting, soft music, the kind of place that felt personal rather than corporate. I texted Eric that I had arrived and he responded right away, saying he was just parking and would be inside soon. I watched the door, expecting to see him walk in at any moment. Minutes passed. Then 10, then 15. He never came inside. My phone vibrated. Another message from him saying he was sorry for the delay and that he was coming in now. I glanced at the entrance again, but no one was there. The restaurant wasn't big, and I had a clear view of the parking lot through the window. I didn't see anyone getting out of their car. Something about it felt wrong. I tried to shake the uneasy feeling and texted him again, asking if he was okay. No response. The waitress came by and I ordered a drink, hoping he was just running late. Another 5 minutes passed. Then another. The unease in my stomach tightened. That's when I noticed something. Across the street, just outside the glow of the street lamp, a figure stood in the shadows. A man. Standing completely still, facing the restaurant. A chill crawled up my spine. My first thought was that it was just some random person waiting for a bus or loitering, but something felt off. He wasn't moving, not shifting his weight, not looking at his phone, just standing, watching. My phone buzzed again. A new message from Eric. I see you. The air left my lungs. My hands started shaking as I stared at the screen. I forced myself to glance back at the figure outside. He hadn't moved, but now I knew he was looking directly at me. I felt exposed, trapped in my seat, panic rising in my throat. I typed back quickly, asking where he was. Another message arrived almost immediately. Come outside. Everything in me screamed no. I didn't respond. I didn't move. The waitress returned, noticing my pale face, asking if I was okay. I managed to force a smile. telling her I was fine, just waiting for someone. But my fingers gripped the edge of the table so tightly that my knuckles turned white. Not every date ends with a goodbye. Some leave you with a feeling you can't shake, a presence that lingers long after the night is over. You never really know who's sitting across from you, or what they truly want. If these stories made your skin crawl, like, share, and subscribe for more terrifying true horror stories. And don't forget to hit the bell icon, because the scariest encounters happen when you least expect them. Stay safe, and always check the back seat.